Welcome everyone to this Azure PlayFab overview. I am very excited to have you all here today. My name is Mark Val. I'm a PlayFab engagement manager. I've been part of the team since 2014. Usually, what I do is go to conferences and go to various studios all around the world, meet a lot of projects that are being done. And these days, I'm spending most of my time doing video conferences, as you can imagine. So we're going to go through most of the top services inside of PlayFab. For those who doesn't know PlayFab, it is more or less everything you need to build and operate a live game, world-class game. So we have all the services from data and analytics, from content management, all the live ops tools and the multiplayer services. So we have a lot to cover today in this PlayFab tour. As you can see, PlayFab just keep growing and growing, and thanks to all the big studios and publishers that are using our services. And one of the main things that makes it great when you work with PlayFab is that you can work as a team. And to start this tour, we're going to look at how publishers and large studios are actually organizing their titles. And bear in mind that the way I'm going to present everything is very informative. There's going to be a lot of content. So let's start. Once a producer or a developer create an account inside of PlayFab, they will be in the My Studios and Titles view. From there, you can see the studio that you are part of and the multiple titles that you're working on. Currently, you can see each of the titles are in development and how many players that they have, which is great. And also, you can give multiple roles for the people that you're working with too. Each of those roles can be customized for each of the person that needs to have access to your studio or your title. For example, for customer support agent, you might want to give them access to only to the players section of PlayFab. Or maybe you have an economist that needs to be having access to only the economy part of PlayFab. Same thing for analytic, the automation, and any part really of the SaaS service of PlayFab. One of the great things with PlayFab is that you can decide if the players can share data across their titles, which means that you could have achievements that goes from one game to another. This is fantastic. Now, let's dive inside of Unicorn Battle. Unicorn Battle is a Unity game that we've made a few years ago, and all the code is available on GitHub. From the dashboard view in PlayFab, we can see all the top level KPIs of the game, how many API call there is, how many new users come in, and also other top level KPIs such as ARPU or how many spenders you have. This is very useful for having a quick view about what's going on in your game. Now let's go inside of the PlayStream monitor. PlayStream is the backbone of PlayFab. It's a set of event streams that comes inside of PlayFab and where all the other features of PlayFab can do actions on top of them. So as we can see, now I've just logged in inside of Unicorn Battle and the events came inside of PlayStream. The events are all in JSON. We can see the event name and what is the name of that event. You can create your own custom event and extend PlayFab in many ways. We're going to see that later. For now, let's go straight into my own profile. Inside of my player profile, we can learn a lot about the player itself. In fact, we can learn everything. We can see what was my first login, my last login, where I am right now, and we can also see the master player account. The master player account is important. This is where all the other title player account are going to be attached to. We can also see the identity service that I've used to log inside of the game. Right now I'm using the Android device, but if it was a PC game, I might see a Steam account or maybe a custom ID account. If it was a console, I would probably see an Xbox account. We support many data sets as part of the player profile. We have player data, which is key value pair. We also have objects and also files. Let's go in that quickly. The player data itself is accessible from the client and can be read as well from the other players or users of the platform. We support the read-only data, which explains itself, and also the internal data. Internal data is secure, which means that it's not accessible from the player himself, only the server can access it or PlayFab itself. We have the same set of data at the publisher level so that it can be accessible from other titles if you would like to. Regarding files, this can be any type of file system you would like. Files can be images or maybe videos or screenshots or maybe other type of data storage that you like to put in a file system inside of a player profile. This can be very useful. We can also go straight inside of the inventory of the player. We can revoke items inside of the player profile as a customer support agent, or maybe just grant some new items if we like to. This is a process that is very frequent for customer support agents. We can also dive inside of the event history of the player. There we can see all the past actions and events that he made inside of the game itself. This gives us even more insights about the player. We can also ban players if we like to. Banning players is quite frequent in multiplayer games. So here we can see the reason why. We can ban permanently, the duration of time, and maybe even ban per IP address. This is great. We also support leaderboards and statistics, which can be found right away inside of the player profile. So example here, I have an XP of 2,800. So what I'm going to do is go again inside of my game and progress a little bit. And then from there, we're going to start to see some more PlayFab events coming inside of PlayStream. And as I progress, my score is going to change and my statistics going to get updated. As we can see here, it was 2,800 and I'm now 3,420. Other things that is very useful in PlayFab is that you can create segments. So these segments can be anything you want. We're going to dive in that a little bit later. But right now, I am part of this segment, which is high XP players over 3,000. So what I can do is go again inside of my XP, inside of the leaderboard, and change it to, let's say, 2,800. Click Save, and then I go back in my segments, refresh my segments, and I'm no more part of the segment. So in short, in PlayFab, segments is in real time. This is great. So now let's go and try to build the segments ourselves. So inside of PlayFab, you can create about any kind of segments you would like to think about. And it's always calculated in real time. As we're seeing on the right, it's being calculated, and we know exactly the number of players that falls into each of those segments. So now let's build a segment from scratch. So inside of PlayFab, you can build pretty much any kind of segments you might think about. So as example, let's make all the players that come from a certain campaign. So let's say we're going to say, give me all the players that come from an ad from Bing, right? So then we can say, okay, the campaign ID is going to be the campaign CU1. Obviously, it's a lot longer. And also we can say, you can give me all the players who didn't log in for a certain period of time. So let's say, give me all the players who didn't play for 4 weeks. So that would be 672 hours. And also, give me all the players who come from a certain country. So here I'm going to say United Kingdom, right? So United Kingdom, there we go. And also, give me all the players who did certain thing in the game. So now I'm going to say, give me all the players who kill more than 30 boss, right? So it means that it's a player who did a lot of things in the game. And how about we sort? How about that we also sort players that done a certain thing in the game. So you can tag players with any custom values you might think about. So let's say as part of this behavior, I would say this player was a killer, right? Or maybe there's another tag which is well, is part of court number 10. And one last thing I would like to put in my segment is give me all the players who fits in all of those parameters, but also that spend more than $10. So now we have a typical player where we've spent money to acquire this player. He stopped playing for one reason or another. He had a lot of fun in the game because he killed more than 30 boss. And he also spent money in the game. So what I would like to do from there is actually try to retain the player. So what I'm going to do is when the player falls into that segment, I can do various type of actions. So for example, I can send a push notification. I can send an email if it's a PC game. I can grant some virtual currencies, maybe some item. I can execute cloud script, which I'm going to show you in a bit. And but right now, let's just say I want to send us some push notification. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the content part of PlayFab, and then from the content part, I'm going to go in the push notification templates and look at the first one that we have here. So the great thing with PlayFab is that you can personalize those push notifications. So then you can say, hey, John, it's been a while that you've played, but you had a lot of fun. We have a new update coming in. So how about you come and play? And we also support advanced payload. It's part of the push notification, which means that you can put images or maybe path to other things or maybe a deep link right away to the app itself. We also support localization, which is very useful. And and that way you'll be able to re-engage with the player. And this is more or less what you want to do. What you can also do is from the action field is, for example, grant some virtual currency. So here I'm going to give 100 gold, and maybe I want to also grant some items. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to give you some Pegasus, and that way, I hope this player is going to be convinced and come back to the game. So when the player comes back inside of the game, so it will be leaving this segment. So again, I can put some more actions that could be interesting for the player to be part of. So now that we have seen a little bit, we're going to go straight into the automation tools. So we're going to talk about Cloud Script. So Cloud Script is a way for you to extend the platform in many ways, because then from here, you can create your own API and extend any PlayFab API that you have. So this way, you can, for example, query the player profile information, have this data back, or do operation on top of the player data to validate maybe if there's something that needs to be done, and then do the operation afterwards, such as maybe granting some virtual currencies, granting some item, or maybe do a notification to other players about some aspect of the games that the player just did. What you can also do from CloudScript is do HTTP requests to other services that is out there in the web. For example, if a developer has his own bare metal machine or his own database, he can query that database and return back the information to PlayFab. Again, very useful. What we support also since very recently is Azure Functions. And as you know, from Azure Functions, we can query a lot of the other services inside of Azure, which is great. So for example, if you want to have your own database on your own format, you can definitely start to query those services. And if you don't want to use Node.js, if you prefer to use C# or Python, you can use it as well for your development. And from Visual Studio Code, you can use breakpoints, develop locally. It's so much more easier than to use our old CloudScript function. But if you want to have something that is very simple, CloudScript will do the job entirely. Now, let's go in the economy section of PlayFab. In the economy, you can create multiple catalogs, and each of those catalogs can have multiple items. An item in PlayFab can be pretty much any kind of virtual goods you might imagine. You can have items that you consume, items that are permanently inside of a player profile, or you can rent the items for a period of time, or you can use the same system to make subscription system. You can change its display name, add a description, also tag items. You can also put, for example, a path to a URL that is part of the file management system of PlayFab. Can be an icon that you use for the store itself. You can stack items. You can say that an item can be given as a gift or maybe tradable. You can also set the price of this item. So for example, here I'm going to say, well, this item is worth 100 gold money or 1000. And RM in PlayFab means real money. So I'm going to say that 1000 gold money is actually mean 299 of real money. What I can also do from there is edit the custom value of this item. So let's say that here we have a sword, and then this sword has a power of 30, and then I release the game, I save my settings, and I'm like, oh my god, this sword is way too powerful. So then I can go back in my catalog, in my item, go in the value, and then nerf the item to 28, press save, and then I'm done. Very easy to do. What we also support is bundles of items. So from there, you can create either pack of items or pack of currencies. You can mix currencies with item as well, which is very useful. We also support containers. So what is a container? It's an item that requires another item for it to work. For example, here I have a crystal container, but I need a crystal key inside of my inventory to open the container. And inside of the container, what I have is a drop table. So what is a drop table? Drop tables is for you to create randomness inside of your game. So as example here, this crystal key has a 10% chance of getting out of the container or chest that was shown just before, which means that this item is more rare than the small health potion that has only have a HUD of 65% to get out of the chest. What I can also do is put a drop table inside of a drop table, so that way I can guarantee there's always a unique or rare items as part of this container. This is very useful for card games or any type of games that has randomness inside of it. And as we know, randomness monetizes very well. What we support as well is stores. So what is a store? A store is a way for you to aggregate items and then override the pricing of those items. So for example, here I have a key bundle and I'm going to override the price that is normally 500 AU to 250. I could also override the custom data. I can also choose which item should be shown first inside of this store. So again, if you have a merchant in your game, this is very useful. And then the most beautiful thing about the store is that you can target a segment afterwards. So it means that, for example, I'm going to say, well, for this store, I really want all my big spenders to see it. As we saw earlier, we are able to create segments. And if I make a segment which all of my players who spend more than $100 should definitely see those new items that just come out of the store, well, I'm going to create it and then I'm going to be able to analyze it and in the end make more money. What we also support is currencies. So currencies, when you create one, can be made in various ways. You can say when I'm gonna create, when my player is gonna join this game for the first time, is gonna have initial deposit of let's say 100 gold. But then, if you are familiar with games such as Candy Crush Saga, it can be also, for example, like some hearts or maybe energy. So then I would say you're gonna have an initial deposit of 5, but then every day it's gonna recharge of 1 unit every hour up to a maximum of let's say 8. So for any games that has resources construction, this is very useful. Now let's go inside of the content section of PlayFab where we find the title data. This is where you're going to put all the text, the path to images or maybe videos that you have. And this way you have a place to store all the information that is related to your game that needs to be dynamic. So you can see this as a CMS. You can have, for example, all your progression level that you have inside of your game, but also you could have other things such as the variable of the monsters. Maybe there's monsters that need to be nerfed down, so that way you can go inside of the title data, change that value, and your game is right away updated. What you can also have from there is the internal data of the title data, which means that from CloudScript, you could query the title internal data and validate some information before doing operation on top of a player or maybe another action that is relatively important for you to do. What we find also in the content section is title news. Title news is very useful. This is where you're going to have all the information that you want to push to the player probably when he starts the game. You can say at a certain date and time in the future, I want to publish this. I want to publish this news. And then again, I can edit the body, I can have the whole thing localized. So that way I have very informative information about what's going to come in the very near future. We also have a full CDN, which we call file management. So from here, if you're using Unity, you could put asset bundles, or maybe you can put images and videos again that needs to be referenced from other part of PlayFab, which is very useful. We saw earlier emails that you can send from segmentation. What we can do with the emails template is actually paste in your own HTML code and then use a confirmation URL of your choice, probably your website, where you're going to be able to either give virtual goods to your players from their website using the JavaScript SDK, or simply have some communication right away for the players to act upon. Now that we know a bit more about PlayFab in general, let's go back into the automation tools, but this time let's go and schedule tasks. Schedule tasks are events that's going to happen in the future that you can manage on your own. So let's create one. So with scheduled task, it is something that's going to happen in the future. So in this case, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to create a daily tournament where every day at 4:05 in the morning, I'm going to do certain action on top of the players who participated in this tournament. So then I can say, okay, give me all the players who are inside of a certain segment. So here I'm going to say, okay, all of the players um, who are part of the Avalanche tournament, I'm gonna send some push notification to say, oh, the tournament is finished, and also I'm gonna execute some cloud script on top of their player profile, maybe to reset some information regarding their progress that they have done. And at the same time, with cloud script, I could definitely also give them all the virtual goods and rewards that are associated with that event. And one last thing I could also do is maybe straight away give them some virtual currency based on their progress that they have done, or simply by default because I love my players and I want to make them happy. So now, every day at 4:05, this action's gonna happen every day. So the great thing with scheduled tasks is that you can definitely create content in the future for your players. You can have retention event, monetization event, or maybe events that are related to a new update that's going to come. And the great thing with scheduled tasks is that you can manage all your updates before they happen, so you will be ready for it. You remember earlier I told you that you can extend PlayFab with the custom events? This is with the rule system. First, let's create a new rule. With the rule system, you can take one of the PlayFab events that was set inside of PlayStream, either the ones from PlayFab or maybe your own custom events, such as here, level complete. Then I can actually pass some parameters which I can evaluate either as a string, a numeral, or maybe a boolean, and then do some action when everything is true. So again, I can send some push notification, grant some virtual currency, and execute some cloud script. As you can see here, we can have a custom event, doing a condition, and also calling our own custom function and API, which means we have a full loop that we are completely the master of what's going to happen. This is truly extending PlayFab at scale. So now let's have a look at our leaderboards. With the leaderboards, you can decide how the data is going to get aggregated. Maybe it's a card game where the smallest score is actually the best, or you might want to use a different type of aggregation, such as sum, so that it takes the old value and add a new one. So this way, you can use CloudScript again to make sure that the score that's being added is actually legit and should move forward. Another thing that we have inside of PlayFab is what we call price table. So price table is very useful because you can target a certain leaderboard. So here, let's take again our Buzzkill and say, okay, all the players were in the top 10. You guys rock. So I'm going to give you some virtual currencies. So let's say 1,000 gold because you guys were so awesome. It gives you a straight way to manage how your tournament's going to work and what will be the result of it. So now that I have content in my game and that I also have a lot of activity that can happen, I want to try to optimize my crowd because now my retention is very good. With the experiment, I'm going to be able to improve my monetization. When I create a new experiment, I can say when it's going to start and exactly at the right time and then for how long, and I can create multiple variants if I would like to, and I can also test the variables that are inside of my game. Maybe there's a monster that's too hard, or maybe there's some length of time that needs to be shorter. This way, I'm going to be able to target the exact percentage of audience that is required for me to test that part of the game and improve it. And not only that, I can also run the experiment right away on a set of segments that is very important for me. And that way, I always have the best results. Once the experiment is done, I'm going to be able to see the score of the experiment and see if it actually worked the way I wanted. Did my revenue went up? Did my retention improved? And it's all about improvement. And this is what you're going to have with the scorecard. The great thing is that the variant that we've created earlier in the test will also send custom events right away into our analytics suites, which you're going to be able to query and have the answer to the question that you have. Now, let's go in multiplayer. So far, All the Azure PlayFab services that we have seen are using REST calls to pull information from PlayFab. But you can also have two-way communication using our server orchestration for multiplayer servers. And we also have Party. Party is used for voice chat, and you can create multiple channels of connection between the users themselves. Using our matchmaker, you can also deliver the best server for the player and having the perfect match. But we also have a third way. Since we support Azure Functions, you can use Azure SignalR and have a real-time connection with Azure PlayFab as well. Now, we're going to look how multiplayer works exactly. Since in PlayFab we know everything about the player, from who is his friends, what is his score, it is a lot easier to do the matchmaking. And then we can connect you to either party, the servers, and progress through the game. With the matchmaker, you're going to be able to set how many players there is in each team and also how big the game will be in general. And with the rule system, you will set exactly which type of game you want the players to have together. The matchmaker of PlayFab comes from Xbox Live with excellent rule system. Having multiple rules is very useful. That way you'll have total control over how the match will happen. Once the matchmake is done, you can go to UX section of the matchmaking service and have a lot of information about how everything is going on with your players. To run multiplayer servers on PlayFab, you can have multiple builds. Each of those builds can have a different machine. The machine that you choose is straight from the Azure services. You can use either Windows or Linux, and you have multiple choice of size of machine that you will be able to run your servers on. Using the start command, you will set exactly the server the way you want it, and have the port and certificate necessary to run the server the right way. And obviously, you can use one of our multiple access points in the world to choose exactly which region you want to have the server to run on. In the usage section, you're going to be able to see how many concurrent cores you currently have and how many cores you have on standby in case there's a new spike of users coming into your game. In the virtual machine section, you can see which build is running on which virtual machine and you can also connect to them. This is very handy. But you can also matchmake with Party. With Party, you connect to a relay server, and then you can choose multiple datagram behaviors on how you want the packets to be sent in and out. The great thing with Party is that it connects everyone together. Either you're Chinese or English or French, everyone can understand each other using Azure speech services that is already included in the service. With the PlayFab Matchmaker, Server, and Party, you're going to be able to give the best experience all around the world to your players. Now that we have the players authenticating, having fun, playing together, let's go in Analytic. In PlayFab, we have something called the event history. This is where all the events that comes from all the players goes into, and then you can search in them to see what's going on. We keep on archive everything that is happening in your game for you to query. But first, we do give you some dashboard templates that gives you an idea of what's going on in the game. Obviously, this game is a demo, there's not so much happening, but you can see already the set of values that are interesting for you, such as how's your new user retention doing on D30 or on D7, such as how long is your screen time on mobile, or what's your trend of active players. You can sort it per cohort, per platform, or per region. With Inside Management, you can manage the performance level of your ingestion layer. This way, you can set how much data you want to have in hot cache. This is very useful because then you have total control of how much data you can query at any time. What we also have is a way for you to decide how long you want us to retain all of your data. Right now it is set to 1,500 days. This is a lot of data. Once you have all your data in place, then you can start using the Explorer. Explorer is a way for you to use KQL and use all different kind of graph to show how is going on with your players. You can render the details by column charts or tables or do counts or pie charts. It's really a way for you to dig into your own custom data that you sent into PlayFab and all the other events that is inside of the platform already. But you can also connect using Grafana, Python, Azure Data Explorer, Power BI, and a lot more. This way, you can have exactly the graph that you're looking for. In short, PlayFab Insight Managed Data Solution makes it very easy to ingest, transform, query, and visualize all of your data. Wow, what a journey! We just went through about 70% of all the features of PlayFab. There's a lot more to find on our website, obviously. We didn't talk about our ad service or roadmap that is up and coming. You will also find that we support multiple SDKs, including one for Unity that is very well made. We have our own inspector window inside of Unity to make your life easier. Regarding our pricing, our goal is to make your development cost-free. Our free development plan makes it free to develop until you reach 100,000 players on the title. Once you pass that limit, you have to choose between the standard plan, which starts at $99 a month, and as your title grow, you might want to upgrade to our premium plan. The premium plan has measured meters. So if we scroll down a little bit and look at it, you're going to see that in PlayFab, in profile reads, we actually include 60 gigabytes of profile reads and 1 petabyte of profile reads inside of the premium plan. Once you choose a plan, either standard or premium, you're going to have support that is included as well. We also have an enterprise plan, which starts at $10,000, which includes many petabytes of data as well. If you'd like to learn more about PlayFab, please reach to us at playfabsales@microsoft.com. To leave you on a high note, let's have a look at the beautiful games made by developers from all around the world that use Azure PlayFab today to build and grow their games. Thank you and happy development.